My hands were shaking when I saw the balance. 15 years of sacrifice. Overtime shifts, no vacations, skipped birthday gifts, living in a one-bedroom apartment, and now my retirement account was nearly empty. I had spent almost $180,000 to pay off my parents' mortgage. Every single month without fail. I did it out of love. Out of duty. But when I told them I couldn't keep it up anymore, they exploded. "You're selfish," my mother snapped. "You think you can just abandon us now?" my father added. I stood there stunned. After all I had done for them, this is what I got. I wasn't trying to be cruel. I just needed to breathe, to save something for myself. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. Turns out, while I was scraping by to help them, my parents had been secretly enjoying luxury cruises. Twice a year. First class. Caribbean, Alaska, Italy. And they'd been hiding it from me the entire time. They even had a hidden account with over $300,000 sitting untouched. When I confronted them, my mother said, "We deserve to enjoy life. You're our daughter. This is your job." That moment shattered everything I thought I knew about family. Backhand index pointing right. Have you ever sacrificed everything for someone, only to realize they never deserved it? If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. This story goes way deeper than you think. My name is Patricia Wilson. I'm 52 years old, a hospital administrator in Portland, Oregon. I've never married, never had kids, and for the last 15 years, I've poured nearly every ounce of my time and energy into two things: my career and my parents. I wasn't always this serious. In my 30s, I dreamed of traveling across Europe, Italy, Greece, Scotland. I wanted to write a little travel blog, maybe even publish a memoir one day. But when my father had his first stroke, everything changed. They were in their early 70s then, living on a fixed income, struggling to make ends meet. Their mortgage payments were falling behind, and they were too proud to downsize or ask anyone for help. So I stepped in. At first, I thought it would just be temporary. A few months to get them back on track. I picked up extra shifts at the hospital, canceled my trip to Spain, and wired them $1,000 that first month. But the months turned into years. The 1,000 became 1,500. And no one ever said, "You can stop now." I told myself I was doing the right thing. After all, they were my parents. They raised me. They gave up so much to keep our family together. Helping them stay in their home, the same house I grew up in, felt like the least I could do. Even when it meant pushing off my own retirement savings. Even when it meant eating ramen 3 nights a week just so I could afford to send money and cover my rent. People at work started calling me a saint, but I never felt holy. Just tired. And it wasn't just the money. I visited every Sunday without fail. Grocery runs, medication pickups, driving them to appointments. They weren't cruel or demanding, at least not back then. But it was clear they'd gotten used to the arrangement. Comfortable even. So I didn't complain. I kept telling myself, just a few more years. They're getting older. Things will calm down. But time didn't bring relief. Only more pressure. The older they got, the more they leaned on me. If I showed up 5 minutes late, I got a guilt trip. If I ever mentioned being tired, my mom would sigh and say, "Try being 75 with arthritis." There was no space to talk about my own needs. And eventually, I stopped having any. Friends invited me to girls' weekends, but I always said no. Colleagues pushed me to apply for leadership training programs that would have required travel, but I didn't want to leave my parents alone for that long. One night I was balancing my checkbook. Yes, I still do it manually, and I realized I hadn't added anything to my retirement account in over a year. When I brought it up to my financial advisor, she looked at me like I'd told her I was jumping off a cliff. "Patricia," she said, "this is serious. You're 52. If you don't start saving now, there may not be a later." I went home that night with a pit in my stomach. That weekend, during our usual Sunday lunch, I took a deep breath and finally said it. "Mom, Dad, I need to talk to you about the mortgage support. I'm falling behind on my own goals, and I need to reduce the amount I'm sending each month." The room went cold. My father put down his fork. My mother didn't even blink. "You're really doing this now?" she said. "After everything?" "I'm not trying to abandon you," I explained, "but I've got nothing left for myself. I need to take care of my future too." My dad's voice turned sharp. "We counted on you, Patricia. You're our only child. You think we have options?" That moment stayed with me. Not because of what they said, but because of what I realized. They hadn't planned anything. They hadn't saved. They expected me to carry it all, forever. And I was starting to wonder if they ever really saw me, or just saw a wallet with a heartbeat. The argument didn't end that Sunday. For the first time in years, I skipped the next visit. No groceries, no pharmacy run, no checking the mailbox. And when Monday came, my mother called at 7:12 a.m., sharp like she always did. Her voice was cold. "I hope you're proud of yourself. Your father didn't sleep all night." "I didn't sleep either, Mom," I replied. "I'm trying to take care of myself. Just for once." She hung up. For days, the silence between us was louder than any words. But deep inside, something had cracked open. For the first time, I wasn't just guilty, I was angry. Angry that they made me feel like a monster for simply asking to breathe. That weekend, I had lunch with my cousin Jenna. Someone I hadn't seen in months because I was always too busy. I unloaded everything. The money, the guilt, the mortgage payments, the fight. Jenna listened quietly, eyes wide. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Wait, you've been paying their mortgage this whole time?" "Yes," I nodded. "For 15 years. Why?" She hesitated, then leaned closer. "Patricia, they go on cruises. Like fancy ones. Twice a year. Alaska in the summer, the Caribbean in the winter. I thought they were doing well." I stared at her like she was speaking another language. "No," I said. "That can't be right. They're broke. That's why I'm helping." She pulled out her phone and started flipping through pictures. There they were, my parents, standing on the deck of a ship with matching sun hats, holding cocktails, laughing in front of glaciers, posing at formal dinners with other retirees. I felt like I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just the cruises, it was the lies. The performance. Every time they said they were too tired to go out, too cold in the winter, too frail to attend my friend's wedding, they'd been sailing the high seas, dressed like royalty. I went home and did something I'd never done before. I checked their address in public property records. I pulled old statements I had access to from the years I paid their bills. I cross-referenced the mortgage lender, looked up transfer dates, scanned through anything I could find. I found it. A joint savings account under their names, opened 10 years ago at a regional credit union. One I'd never heard of before. That account had over $312,000 in it. I blinked. Refreshed the page. Checked the routing number. It was real. I sat there in the dark, the computer light glowing on my face, and I just stared. They had money. Lots of it. And I'd been draining my future to help them survive. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I felt stupid. Humiliated. Used. So I printed the account page. And the cruise photos Jenna sent. I drove to their house the next morning and laid it all on the kitchen table. They didn't deny it. "We didn't tell you," my mother said slowly, "because we knew you'd judge us." "Judge you?" I nearly choked. "For lying to me? For letting me sacrifice everything while you went island hopping?" My father didn't look up. He just muttered, "We deserve to enjoy life. You don't have kids. You have no one else to take care of. You can always work longer." That's when I snapped. "You knew what you were doing," I said. "You let me carry you while you cruised around the world. And then you had the audacity to shame me when I asked to stop." My mother crossed her arms. "It's your duty. We're your parents." And right there, I realized this was never going to change. They didn't see me as a person. I was a pension. An automatic deposit. Their safety net, their golden goose. They hadn't just used me, they'd expected to. I walked out that day and didn't go back. For the first time in years. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The silence stretched for days. Then weeks. No calls. No texts. Not even a passive-aggressive voicemail from my mother, which in itself felt like a red flag. But I didn't reach out. I needed space. I needed to process what I'd just uncovered, not just the hidden money but the years of manipulation behind it. Every birthday they couldn't afford to celebrate. Every holiday where I footed the bill. Every excuse. Every guilt trip. It all made sense now. And that sense was betrayal. I started therapy. My counselor called it financial and emotional parentification. A pattern where children are expected to sacrifice for their parents, even into adulthood. I called it being played. A month later I got a letter in the mail. Not an email. A real letter. handwritten in my father's shaky script. We're disappointed in you. We never raised you to be selfish. You think you've got everything figured out, but wait until you're our age. You'll understand then. You owe us better. We sacrificed plenty for you. You just forgot. There was no love, no hope you're okay. Just guilt, layered in passive-aggressive ink. I didn't respond. And then came the real twist. 3 months after I cut off support, I got a frantic call from my mother. Her voice was shrill, no longer composed. The bank sent us a notice. We're behind on the mortgage. They're talking about foreclosure. I stayed silent. She continued, Patricia, you have to do something. They said we owe 2 months already and the next one's coming up fast. I breathed slowly, carefully. Mom, I haven't paid that bill in 3 months. You said you had savings. That's not the point, she snapped. You knew we needed help. I bit my tongue before I said something I'd regret. Then I said the one thing I'd rehearsed for weeks. I'll help, but only if you agree to sell the house and move somewhere more affordable. Dead silence. Then a laugh, sharp, bitter, disbelieving. This is our home, Patricia. You grew up here. You want to kick us out of our own house. I want you to have options you can actually afford, I said. You have money. Use it wisely. Get a condo, pay it off, and live comfortably. That's a win. Her voice turned to ice. You've turned into someone we don't even recognize. No, Mom. I've finally become someone who recognizes myself. She hung up. That call marked the line in the sand. The old me, the obedient daughter who kept giving even when it hurt, died in that moment. And I won't lie, it was painful. I missed them even in their most manipulative moments. I missed Sunday lunches even when they were awkward. I missed the illusion that we were a close-knit family, because even lies, when told long enough, can start to feel like home. But I also started to breathe again. I went to the coast for a weekend. I slept in for the first time in months. I bought myself a pair of boots I'd been eyeing for 3 winters. It was liberating and terrifying. Because cutting off toxic people, even when they're your own flesh and blood, isn't some heroic movie moment. It's quiet. It's lonely. It's full of second-guessing and late-night doubts. But I stayed firm. I didn't send money. I didn't respond to guilt-laced voicemails. I didn't cave when my father sent another letter, claiming the house was falling apart without me. And slowly, week by week, they stopped trying. Until 6 months later, when desperation finally cracked their pride. 6 months. That's how long it took before my parents called me again. Not with guilt, not with demands, but with panic in their voices. Patricia, my dad said quietly. They're moving to foreclose. The tone had changed. The arrogance was gone. He didn't even try to sound angry, he just sounded tired. They had exhausted whatever savings they hadn't stashed away, or maybe just refused to use. The cruise fund? Gone. The secret account? Probably untouched, either out of stubborn pride or the belief that I'd cave again. I didn't cave. But I also didn't hang up. Instead I paused, then said calmly, I'll help on one condition. You sell the house. They gasped in unison like I'd suggested burning it to the ground. That house is our life, my mom protested. We've lived here for 38 years. I know, I said. And if you sell it now, you can walk away with equity. Use the money to buy a smaller place outright. No mortgage, no pressure. Comfort without depending on me. We're not moving into some tiny apartment, she snapped. I'm not suggesting an apartment, I said. There are beautiful condos near the river. Senior communities with great amenities. Pools, gardens, friends your age. My dad was quiet. He was always more pragmatic than my mother. Eventually he spoke. How much do you think we could get for the house? I had already done the math. You bought it for $190,000 in 1995. The market's hot. You can sell it for close to $700,000. After fees and the remaining mortgage, you'll still walk away with well over $500,000. Silence. I waited. Then finally, fine. We'll think about it. I didn't push. I let it sit. A week later they called back. They had met with a real estate agent. Another week after that, the for sale sign went up. 2 months later, the house sold. Cash offer above asking. Final sale, $715,000. After everything was paid off, they had enough to buy a condo outright, with $100,000 still in the bank. And just like that, the weight that had crushed me for 15 years was lifted. But I didn't celebrate just yet. Because for me, the real victory wasn't in seeing them sweat. It was in seeing myself rise. The day after the sale closed, I sat down with my financial advisor. We ran the numbers, built a fresh retirement plan, and started automated contributions again. She smiled and said, "You're finally back on track. We still have time." That night, I opened my laptop and booked a flight. 2 weeks in Europe. Florence, Rome, Paris. A dream I'd postponed so long, I'd started to believe I didn't deserve it anymore. I used my own money. Not out of guilt. Not out of fear. But out of freedom. And I went. I sipped espresso in a cobblestone cafe. I watched the sunset from the Eiffel Tower. I stood inside the Colosseum and cried. Not because of the history, but because I was finally living mine. When I returned home, there was a postcard in the mail. From my parents. It was polite. Short. "Hope the trip was nice. We found a lovely condo just like you said. Thank you." That was it. No apology. No real acknowledgement of the years I gave up. But I didn't need one anymore. Because I had given them something they'd never given me. Boundaries with grace. And then, a month later, it happened. They called again. "Patricia," my mom said, trying to sound casual. "We're thinking of taking another cruise this winter. The Caribbean. But prices have gone up so much." I knew where this was going. "We were wondering if you could." I cut her off. "I actually have something perfect for you." I sent a package the next day. Inside was a book on financial planning. Tabs highlighted. Notes scribbled. Sections dog-eared with tips on budgeting, saving, and retirement. On the first page, I left a note. "You said I'd understand when I got older. I do now. And this time, I'm choosing me." 3 days after I mailed the financial planning book, I got a voicemail. It was my mother. And this time, she didn't even try to hide the rage. "Is this a joke to you? The book, after all these years. We're your parents, Patricia. Not some charity case you can throw pamphlets at." She went on for nearly 3 minutes, listing every sacrifice they'd ever made. From the ballet lessons I begged to quit, to the roof over your head, they claimed gave me the life I had. I didn't call back. As the truth was, I'd already heard it all before. This wasn't about cruises or condos or retirement funds. This was about control. The kind of control they had held over me since I was a teenager. Through guilt, through silence, through obligation dressed up as love. The next Sunday, I did something I hadn't done in years. I didn't go to visit. No groceries. No phone call. No explanation. Instead, I went hiking with Jenna and her kids. We climbed a trail outside the city, just a few miles, but it felt like Everest. My knees ached, my lungs burned, and still I smiled the entire way up. As for once, I was moving forward. Upward. For myself. But fallout doesn't always explode. It creeps in. A few weeks later, my father had another minor stroke. Jenna told me she still kept in touch with a neighbor of theirs. I sent flowers to the hospital. That was it. No calls. No visits. Just boundaries. And when my mom called me afterward, voice brittle with rehearsed sadness, I let her talk. She said they missed me. That things weren't the same without their daughter. That the holidays felt emptier. But not once did she say sorry. Not once did she acknowledge the years I had given them. "I'm glad he's recovering," I told her. "And I hope you're both doing okay." "We're managing," she said. Then after a long pause, "You're really not going to come? I think it's best we give each other space." The line went quiet. And then she said something that, even after everything, surprised me. "You were always the strong one. I just didn't want to admit it." That one sentence hit me harder than all the insults before it. Because it was the closest thing to truth I'd ever gotten from her. But I didn't let it pull me back. Strength doesn't mean carrying everyone else's weight until you collapse. Sometimes, it means putting it down and walking away. The following months were quiet. No more cruise requests. No letters asking for money. Just a few stiff holiday cards with generic greetings and a couple of short texts on birthdays. My parents adjusted. I watched from a distance as they learned to live within their means. Shopping at different stores, driving less, making choices like the rest of us. They were fine. Not thriving, not suffering. Just fine. And honestly, that was enough for me. Because the real fallout wasn't financial. It was emotional. I had spent 15 years tying my self-worth to what I could give. To them, to everyone. And for the first time, I was learning to exist outside of that. I started taking cooking classes, bought a bicycle, took short weekend trips. Nothing lavish, just mine. And the more I reclaimed my time, my money, my voice, the less bitter I became. Not because I forgave them exactly, but because I finally forgave myself. For staying too long. For giving too much. For not asking sooner, what do I need? It's been 2 years now. 2 years since I stopped paying their mortgage. 2 years since I stood up for myself. Not in anger but in clarity. And it's funny, the world didn't end. They didn't fall apart. Neither did I. In fact, I started to rebuild. Quietly, steadily. My retirement savings are back on track. I have a cushion again. Not just financially, but emotionally. This past spring I took a solo trip to Barcelona. Just me, a journal and no schedule. I walked the narrow alleys of the Gothic Quarter, watched flamenco dancers in a plaza and cried, right in the middle of a park bench, as a street musician played something soft and familiar. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization that I was free. Free from obligation without appreciation. Free from cycles of guilt masquerading as love. Free to be the woman I might have become a decade earlier. If only I'd known it was okay to say, enough. My parents still live in their modest condo by the river. We talk occasionally, surface-level stuff. I check in, they ask about work. But we both know something deeper changed, and maybe that's for the best. I no longer expect apologies. I no longer need their validation. And if they ever ask for another cruise, I'll send them a travel magazine and say, pick a page. Dream all you want. But this time I'm keeping my wallet and my peace. Because the truth is, love without respect is just a transaction. And family without boundaries? That's not support. That's servitude. So here's the lesson I learned. Maybe the one I wish someone had told me sooner. Being a good daughter doesn't mean losing yourself. It means knowing when to give, and when to walk away. What did you think of this story? If you were in Patricia's shoes, how would you have handled it? Let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And if you support Patricia, vote number 1. If you think she should have handled things differently, vote number 9. Don't forget to subscribe to Outlaw Alley so you never miss a powerful new family karma story. Every single day.